What's up, guys? It's Caitlin with the I Killed My Own Killer book series and podcast. And before we start each podcast off, we started off with an encourager. And the encourager for this week is Hillary. She is the one that I interview in this podcast, and she is an encourager because she encourages me as a mom, as a wife, as a Christian woman who grows in her faith every single day. It's so important to associate with like-minded people, and she is one of those people that I'm so happy I have a connection to because I get to watch her walk and lead by example, and it makes me want to grow more. So dig deep into this podcast as she goes into a deep story about how she had to grow in some areas as a wife, as a mother, as an expecting mother right now, and enjoy Hillary's podcast. Hey Facebook family, it's me again, Caitlin, and I am here to record another episode of the I Killed My Own Killer book series and podcast tonight. I've been MIA for a while. Last week we were in Atlanta, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, and back to Atlanta, and we finally made it back home. So I'm excited to be back home. I'm excited to continue to give you guys more valuable information. Hey Jessica, I'm so happy you're joining us. Today we're going to be talking about all things motherhood, and I will not be the host for today's podcast. I'm going to be interviewing Hillary. She is a killer mom, wife. She's got it going on in so many areas of her life. So I'm here to interview her tonight. So if you are a mama, stay-at-home mom, working mom, wife, and you just want some inspiration, some motivational mom tips, then tonight it is going down. This is the place to be. And the cool part is we are doing our first ever giveaway. So if you want some free mama goodies, the Blossoming Mumsy is a really cool subscription box that sends moms self-care goodies. I had put in my order a few days ago, and I can't wait to get my Blossoming Mumsy box just to see what kind of self-care goodies is in it. But you know me, and I don't like to just do things for myself. So there is going to be a Q&A questionnaire at the end of tonight's interview, and whichever mama answers the question correctly and wins the contest, you will have a free Blossoming Mumsy box shipped straight to you. So stay tuned for tonight's interview. Hillary should be joining us soon, and we are going to interview her just to see how does she keep it going as an awesome mom and wife. Because I know as a mom, sometimes it feels like you're juggling so many balls between keeping the house clean, cooking, doing whatever it is that you need to do for your career, your business, and making sure the kids are taken care of. Like, that's a whole nother ball game, especially as they continue to get older. And then if you want to have more kids, that's a whole nother category in itself, a new learning experience that I'm yet to embark on, which is why I have invited Hillary to join us tonight to talk all things motherhood, give us the 411 on everything we need to know. And moms, if you are having if you're struggling in a certain area of your life and you need some tips and some feedback, that's what we mamas are here for. We're here to support each other. Especially as women, we're always thinking about the 50 million things that we have to do. So I just want to talk to Hillary and see, where does her peace come from? How is she always, just handling life so well? What are some of the thoughts that go through her head as a mom, just so she doesn't get overwhelmed? Because being a mom is one thing, but then being a wife is another thing. And I'm sure some of you wives can relate. Your husband, it almost feels like another child sometimes when you're having to do so much for them. It's a lot of energy. It's fun, but you can't leave your husband out. Like, you got to tend to them just as much as you would tend your kids. Just tell us a little bit about yourself. So that's a great place to pick back up.
All right. So usually a little bit better with technology than now, but we're going to work past that. So yeah. I am a mom of two. I have one on the way. I'm currently at home full time. I worked for I worked since I was 15, 16 at a diner, and then just random jobs throughout then.
Mm-hmm.
And graduated and was working at a dentist office. That was my main job. And about a year and a half ago, I kind of just, it was a lot leading up to it, but I just felt like it was time for me to stay home. Um, I really felt like God was saying, it's time. And I know that it wasn't me because I have worked, all of my adult life since I could work. My parents both worked full-time jobs. So it was literally all I knew. Like, I just thought I was going to work until I die, just like everybody else. And so the thought of having to leave a job with nothing else lined up, just like hands up, okay, I'm gonna quit my job. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna do it. So I knew it was God saying it was time to go home. So I quit my job and I didn't know what I was gonna do. It was weird.
And you were
Yes, I was married, and we had Jude and Elliot. So I was a full-time working mom when Jude was born and when Elliot was born. Elliot was almost a year old whenever
okay.
I quit. And I loved my job. I loved what I did. It's not that I wanted to quit or find something else to do. It was just they were sick as kids. Y'all know they go to daycare, they catch every little bug, and they can't go back if they're running a fever. And Logan, having his job, he was a little more flexible than me because we were a small office. So when one person was out, it was, like everybody was on survival mode. So it was a bigger deal for me to leave to stay home with the kids whenever they were sick. And so he would have to stay home.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at a 100% commission-based job, if he stays home and he doesn't get to work, he doesn't make money. And he
Yeah.
was the one making the majority of the money at the time. And so he's like, it just doesn't make sense,
Mm-hmm.
for you to be working and me having to take off this many times. So that's kind of when I knew it was like, okay, I think that I'm going to do this. Well, at the time that this happened, we were pretty well off financially. Logan was doing really well. And so I did not want to be a stay-at-home mom. Let me
Yeah.
just make that clear. I did not want to be a stay-at-home mom. Some women like dream of doing that their entire lives. They can't wait to have kids. They can't wait to get married, to do all the home stuff. Like, that was not me. I was working. So all I knew how to do was work. And so whenever I was like getting this sense of like I need to stay home, like, what, I don't know what I'm gonna do because I can't stay home with my kids all day. They're going to drive me crazy. And so it was just kind of like working through that process. So at the time that I quit, they were actually still in full-time daycare.
Okay.
So I really didn't know what to do with myself.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a really, really great season that I didn't even know that I needed.
Yeah.
I was able to have time to myself
Mm-hmm.
and get things done around the house, and just having them so close together. They were 16 months apart. And so had the first one. Jude was 7 months old whenever I found out I was pregnant for the second one. I nursed both babies. So I was pregnant or nursing for 3 years. Like, I didn't have a sense of self anymore. Like, my whole being was to keep another human being alive, essentially. And so, like, I didn't know how to be a person apart from that. And so just to have that season of, not having anywhere to be, not having any bottles to fix, like not having a baby to feed all day, it was so good for me to just get back to myself. And so that's really whenever I jumped into Lime Life full time around May. So I quit in February. This was May. So after a couple months, I was like, okay, I really need something to do. I'm at home with nothing to do. So that's whenever I jumped into that and really started working that the business, the network marketing, and I did really well. I did really well with it. It like grew in a short amount of time. I actually surprised myself.
Yeah.
Because I was with the company for a year and a half before.
Okay.
And didn't really do anything with it. And so I got involved in it, and so the kids were still in full-time daycare, but I was doing a lot of stuff after hours.
Mm-hmm.
naturally that's just when people are less busy,
Yeah.
after bedtime and stuff. And so it was taken away from already that's a busy time at night,
Mhm.
bath time, bedtime, that whole routine. And then after just, usually time with my husband.
Mhm.
And so, and then the weekends, doing the parties and stuff, it just got to be really, really overwhelming. I wasn't good at time management. If I
Mhm.
had a message, like it would eat at me until I got it, until
Yeah.
I got to it, until I responded to it. And
Yeah.
so I couldn't separate, work, or I couldn't set these hours because it stayed in the back of my mind. Like I had to get to them. And
Mhm.
so, the family side suffered. And just this is probably going to be hard for some people to hear because it's social media, but
Mhm.
like I got way too dependent, I guess, on the likes and the engagement and who was watching and who, just I was so consumed in Facebook and, what post is going to get me the most traction? Like, what are people going to look at? What are people are going to like? If I post something, well, why are they not looking at this? And I was just doing constant research and watching videos and how to do network marketing on Facebook. And so it finally got to a point where for me, it wasn't good and it wasn't healthy anymore. So that's kind of whenever I felt like he was pulling me away from that. Not that anything is wrong with network marketing, or because I believe that is a huge part of today's world.
Mhm.
But to each individual person, it's whatever they're called to and wherever God wants to take them. And I know that he was trying to teach me something. So
And I'm
I
so happy,
stepped
regardless of the fact that we're on social media.
I I know this used to be a huge part. This used to be a huge part of my job and my life. And, it was a lot of, I had to get on at night and do a lot, not that I had to, but, that was the business. You get on a live at night, and it didn't work for me in our house, you know. And that's really the most important part is it's each individual family,
Mhm.
what you're willing to give and take and sacrifice. And just, in our house it wasn't worth it at
Yeah.
the time. It's not like we needed the money. I was
Mhm.
just working just to do it
Yeah.
because I liked it. And I honestly was putting way more money into it than I was getting out of it. And it was a lot of stuff that I didn't need. And so nothing bad about the company or network marketing at all. It just, for me, it was time for me to step away from it, and so that I could really focus on what was going to come next, which was I ended up switching the kids to a part-time daycare in
Mhm.
December of last year. So I had them home on Mondays and Fridays, and
Okay.
they would go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from like 8 to 2:30.
Mm.
And then COVID hit, and then
Ah.
they were home full time,
Woo. Tell us
all
about that.
day, every day, in the house, couldn't go anywhere. Nobody could come over. It was just the three of us. And so I really think that whole last year was just God's way of just being the gentle man that he is,
Yep.
allowing me to work my way into being the stay-at-home mom, that I needed to be in the time that I needed to be, because a lot of people were just thrown into it, had to stay home from work, watch the kids, but also still work and still watch the kids and do all of it. There's people that were working full-time jobs, doing Zooms, teaching their kids on Zoom and cooking and clean and doing all of that. Like, those are the real superheroes. Like, without a doubt. I don't know how other people survived COVID quarantine, because it was crazy enough for us, and I had fun. I was able to work my way into that season.
Yeah.
And then they were little and they weren't really in school, but it was just, to keep the toddlers busy all day for 12 hours a day.
Yes. For
Uh, so,
It seems like you had a season of transition that set you up for COVID, where a lot of moms, like you were saying, they weren't given that time to prepare. They were just thrown into it.
absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
you and all the other mamas out there, y'all are doing an amazing job. Just because they're so different. You have mamas that have newborns, toddlers, both of them, and then some of them have older kids, and it's all like new territory for us. And I know whenever I first became a mom, like even when I was pregnant, I'm looking on Pinterest for the best ways to do this, and I'm trying to read this mommy blog about how she raised her family. And now that I'm learning exactly what you said, it's different for every family. So do you ever find yourself in a season of motherhood comparing what you did to another mom, or maybe your nursing journey? How do you continue to work on yourself and understand that you and your child's journey is you and your child, and it's different than each kid? So like my question to you is, how do you stop yourself from comparison to other moms, and then comparison to each of your kids as their own individuals?
So usually I'm 6 feet deep before I realize that it's comparison.
Yeah.
We think that what we're doing is, well, I just want to learn how they do it. You know, they seem to have a good schedule going, or they seem to have a good routine, or, you know, she seems to have a good way with her kids. And then you try it with your kids who are totally different from their kids in your household, which is totally different from their household. And so most of the time, you're going to get different results.
Yeah.
And that could land you with a big fat feeling of failure, because what you're trying to do, I'm doing the exact same thing as them. And yet it's not looking like what they posted on Facebook or Pinterest. So something must be wrong with me or what I'm doing, when in all actuality, like it just doesn't work. Like this was something that I realized during COVID was, I'm not a crafty mom. I'm not. And I would try to find the things on Pinterest and see what other families were doing and try to incorporate it. And 9 times out of 10, my kids would just destroy it. Like there was no sit down and let's do this together. Like this will probably give us like an hour, you know, busy time. No, they would get their hands all over in it and destroy it within seconds. And then I would get angry and frustrated, and then out the window goes that activity.
Yeah.
And so I had to just kind of, you know what? I have 2 boys. They're young. They're 2 and 3 years old. I don't have this set up. Like, I'm sure at school they do great, you know, around other kids. But for me, it's like, you know what? Let's just go outside. We'll go ride bikes. We'll get chalk. You know, it was just finding things that my kids and I could do together that would not end in a war. And some things that we tried, like, you know, that I saw, some things were great, some things weren't. And, you know, instead of looking at it as a failure, because it doesn't look like what the other families looked like, I just had to, you know, find something that worked for us and realize that, you know, our family is our family and we may do it differently. Or, you know, even with discipline, you know, we do a lot of things differently than other families.
Yeah.
And that can be a sensitive subject sometimes, but I don't I don't know the word. I don't judge anymore. I used to be like, you know, you should do this with your kids. You should do this with your kids. And now having my own kids, I'm like, oh man, I had a lot of insert foot into mouth moments. Like, it's just not the same. You know, whatever works for one family may not always work for another family. And so it's just having to realize that and be comfortable and confident that what you're doing is right for your family, no matter what. And, you know, at the end of the day, if they're happy, then that's all that matters.
Yes, you hit on so many good points answering that loaded question I gave you. And you said the word failure 3 times, and it's so true. When something doesn't go as planned, we look at it as failure, which leads to mommy guilt. And you could go like in a downward spiral as a mom doing that. Because I follow somebody on Instagram and they're always doing the coolest crafts with like stay at home with their kids. And I'm like, oh my God, that looks so fun. But my son is so active. Anytime I pull out the paint like you, it's a mess. So for listening to you and watching you, your boys are always fishing, doing outdoor stuff. So I think we as moms have to be okay saying, you know what, Kelly over there is a crafty mom, where I'm an outdoorsy mom, and we all have different strengths as moms that we bring to the table, but that doesn't necessarily mean we need to bring it into our household and try it out in our own family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Try it. If it doesn't work, it's just not a good fit. And it has nothing to do with you, with your ability as a mom. It just is not a good activity for you to do. Can try. There's millions of things to do. You know, if one mom has to incorporate a lot more screen time to get stuff done, like there's nothing wrong with that. I had gave my kids iPads today just so I can get a shower. I'm like, here, you can watch the iPad for a little bit. I gotta go take a shower. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
You hit on so many topics that are different in today's world, or people don't want to talk about them. And I think it's because our judgments and our viewpoints are so strong, where motherhood has humbled me. Previously, before I was a mom, I used to say, oh, I'm never going to have a kid that does X, Y, and Z. Or like screen time. Well, my time with my kid and not have to use a cell phone when advantage of today's technology. But of course, there's balance to it. So that's definitely one thing as moms, we have to give ourselves grace, but give the mothering world grace too, and realize different strokes for different folks, no judgment at all.
Absolutely, absolutely. When you see what goes wrong in your household, like it gives you a space to give grace to others, because you know what goes on in your household, and you know that there's meltdowns and there's wars and there's tantrums. And so no matter what you see on Facebook, there's those same tantrums and those same wars and those same things going on in the other person's household. So sometimes whatever you have to do for your mental state, if you need to put them on the iPad for a little bit just so you can
Woosah.
Regroup, woosah, get yourself back together, like it's okay.
Yes.
It's okay. They'll be okay.
Yes, absolutely. I'm reading a book right now, and it says like depression, anxiety is such a big deal in today's world, but we're not realizing what the root of it is from. And you're looking at it, it's social media, because you're looking at everybody else's life and it's their highlight reel and all the glamour. And on a mom level, you're not going to post your kid having a tantrum in the corner and crying. You're only going to post the glorious moments where they're being good. So that's really why we can't compare ourselves to what we see online. And that's what my second book is about. I Killed My Own Killer. Talks about the power of social media and how it's killing us in so many ways. Just self-confidence, your anxiety, depression. But I want to tie your insight to that, just for like you as a mom, you're very confident. So were you, I don't want to say were you born that way, but did it come naturally to you, or after over time through some of the failures you're talking about?
I'm glad that I display confidence. Most of the time I am, but there's a lot of times, and this year has been really hard. I think it's been really hard on everybody, where it kind of came creeping back in a little bit. I will say that, so I did struggle with postpartum depression after Jude.
Okay.
We were married for about 6 months whenever I found out I was pregnant. So we were like trying from the beginning. Mm-hmm. So found out I was pregnant. This is a little bit of our backstory. Logan was in the oil field, and 2016, mm-hmm. found out I was pregnant. 2 weeks later, Logan gets let go from the oil field. This was like the beginning of the oil field crash. And then he jumps into a real estate business that he has no knowledge, no experience, no background, no nothing. Wow. His manager that he got let go with, who he was also friends with, convinced him to get started with him. He had some rental properties. He's like, look, I'll help you. And me, trying to be a good supportive wife, was like, sure. I'm so excited for you to start this business. That's not going to earn any money at all. So it was a lot of trust in God, a lot of prayers, because I knew that I couldn't do anything directly. Like I didn't want to say, he was already in a pretty rough, like emotional spot for a man, especially losing their job and being the provider of the family. So I didn't want to say anything to like super crush his spirits. So I did a lot of praying, and in the meantime of like doing his real estate, he got a couple little jobs here and there just to bring in some extra income. And then August 2016, our house floods.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm almost 4 months pregnant. And first time pregnancy, we weren't finding out what we were having, but it was still early on. So like when most first time moms are looking at Pinterest to get their nurseries together and doing gender reveals to find out what baby they're having, like, you know, boy or girl, we're gutting out our house, throwing majority of what we own into the trash because it is ruined. And we're moving to my mother-in-law's for 4 months. And so we're just kind of like in survival mode. Um, by the grace of God, like we had so much help. I still don't know where it came from. Like it was all from him. How we had like, because we had no income except for my job, which I made like less than a teacher. So really all I paid for was the bills. And then the couple things that he did on the side kind of gave us a little extra. So we didn't have much to spend. So there was no nursery. It was just, we need to get our house back livable so that we can bring the baby home. So December, we moved back in. January, we have Jude. And then that was just a reality check. Like they just take up so much time. And I was still working full time, nursing mom. So I was pumping 3 times a day at work. Coming home, it was a very big adjustment for me. And so I struggled with postpartum depression. Our marriage went to the dumps. I barely gave myself time, much less him time. And so it just went downhill bad. And like we were on the verge of divorce come June. And somehow we stayed together. We agreed to work things out. And then August of the same year, 2017, Jude is 7 months old. Finally, I'm pregnant for Elliot. So needless to say, all of that was a blur. So coming off with the postpartum depression, now I'm pregnant again. Our marriage is a dump. And marriage by itself is hard without kids. Add a kid and then a pregnancy on the way. Thankfully, his real estate started to pick up, so we didn't have the financial burden as much. But then once Elliot was born in May of 2018, whenever I went in for my 6-week checkup, I was like, something is not right. Like I am always on the edge. And so she's like, do you want to be on some antidepressants? I'm like, yeah, give me all the candy. I will take it. And she's like, she made sure to say, you're not alone.
That's good.
It's normal. Like majority of first-time moms or even second-time moms, even if it's the lowest dose or on something, and she explained it as it basically just takes you off the edge. Because when you sit on that edge, it doesn't matter what it is, explosions. And then for me, just on a regular basis, it's hard for me to just come down from that. So like it's days sometimes before I'm like back to my normal self. And so she's like, you're fine. You're normal. We'll try this. You know, if it helps, great. If not, we'll do something else. So it helped. And so I was on it for a year. I was on antidepressants for a year. It helped me to get out of that fog. It helped me to be able to think clear. It helped me to be able to enjoy just daily life. I could it's like the fog was lifted and like I could see what I had in front of me that I was so grateful for, that I was so thankful for, that it's hard to see when you're in it. And so, but for me, I believe that it wasn't going to be a long term. It wasn't going to be a permanent thing. It wasn't going to be something that I was on for the rest of my life. Because it does start like sometimes the side effects of it like outweigh the good. So it just became, you know, evil versus evil. And so after a year, I decided that I was going to get off, and I was with a lot of, I was in a better place. I had a better relationship with Christ. I had great friends surrounding me. I had great mom friends. Our marriage was in a better place. We were able to finally get to a place where we were good. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to get off of it. And that was July of last year. And then we had some really hard financial struggles at the end of last year. And then it's like it all came back and I was like, oh my gosh. But you just have to go back to that place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's what really helped me, because if not, like I would have found myself right back on it.
Yeah.
And I knew that it wasn't something that I wanted to stay on or stay, you know, all a long term. For me, you know, every single person is different. Some people do need it longer, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just wanted to be able to find a way to do it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, you know, not really on my own, but through Jesus, you know, he really having that relationship and just learning just scripture to speak over, you know, life-giving scripture, and just remembering to be always grateful, you know, like just remembering at the end of the day, all that I have, how far we've come. And it kind of gives you a perspective shift.
It does. Wow, thank you so much for sharing all of that too, because I have never struggled with that or dealt with that. But the fact that you opened up to it, I'm sure is going to change a lot of our viewers' lives. It's going to give a lot of these moms a feeling of community, sense, like I'm not alone, like you said. I struggled with depression whenever I was younger and suicide, and I dealt with antidepressants then. And it made me feel numb to an extent to where I couldn't love. So that's when I did a personal goal like you, and I said, okay, I'm going to find happiness in God to where I don't need this pill anymore, and I did. And I worked really hard during pregnancy and then post-baby to continue to work on myself emotionally. But as you know, every single day is a journey. You know, you have days where you're so grateful and you love your life, and then other days you're like, why is this kid doing this? And it's tough. And then you sit back and you're like, you know what? I do have a lot to be grateful for. So I just think it's like a roller coaster. And that's why I asked you that question. Where does your confidence come from? And just from hearing your story, it definitely seems like your confidence comes from God and just trial and error and the journey of motherhood in itself.
Yeah. Knowing where I was to where I am now really keeps me going. Like, and I know the value that I bring to my family. Like, I know how important I am, whether or not I'm doing X, Y, or Z. Like, I'm keeping my kids alive. We have a great schedule on. We have a routine. They have food on the table. Like, just the little things that people don't think that gives them value, it does. Like, just the fact that I keep this household running.
Yeah.
That by itself,
like,
that's huge. If I were to walk out the door and not leave a lick of notes for Logan, it would be mayhem in here. And some people's are more organized than others. Some days ours is on a whim, but it's organized chaos. You know, I still have the control over the atmosphere and over the environment, the temperature, so to speak. Like, I set the temperature of the house. Like, I bring a lot of value, whether or not I have a schedule of what we're eating every single day and my recipes and my grocery list, like whether it's, you know, in Excel, whether it's scribbled on a notepad, whether it's in notes in my phone, or whether it's just up here, you know, we're constantly doing stuff every day to keep our house running smooth. And like that by itself, like that's huge. That's a huge job.
It is. And I think a lot of moms don't give themselves for that. So I'm so happy you opened up with that. It wouldn't be the same without you. And your husband put in the comments that he would be fine, but deep down inside, nope.
It'd be a little chaotic. He would figure it out. He would, because he's a good man that figures things out. And it wouldn't be done the way I would probably do it, but that's okay. Things would still get done. But just the fact that he doesn't have to, you know, come home and worry about what we're going to eat for dinner. What are the kids, you know, like I've already established, and we have together also, you know, I don't want to make it seem like it was all me, but we've established this routine together, and then like I've just kind of set it and I keep it going. So that is huge. Like if you as a mom, that's all you do is just keep your household running, like that is enough by itself. If you have dinner every night, if the kids eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you can keep your house clean, like that's enough. Those are big things by itself. Trust me.
Yeah, for sure. One of my friends came visit me recently, and when she got out the car, I said, "Hey, how are you guys?" And she got her two boys out the car, and she said, "We're alive. We're doing great." And I'm like, the mama attitude. Yes, y'all are doing very well. But what your husband was talking about, that y'all, they would be good, they would survive. It's so true. Whenever I leave Lincoln at home with DePaul, if it's for like 2 or 3 days, like if I go on a girls trip or something, things may not be like how I do them or how I like them, but those husbands, they manage. So for you is, how do you find time to be an amazing wife? Because you know, after taking care of yourself and taking care of the kids all day, it's draining, but then you gotta look at your husband at the end of the night. So how do you find time or energy to feel that well?
Uh, I don't always, if I'm being 100% honest.
Yeah.
You know, it's some days it's either him or the kids, and you know, some days it's the kids, and some days it's him, and some days it's like, you know what, I've had a lot today, but this is still something that a marriage is basically 100. Like, it shouldn't be 50-50. It's not, well, you did this, so I'm going to do this. It should be, in spite of what you're doing, I'm still going to show up. And I don't always do that. Probably, I don't want to say too much because now I know he's on here. I couldn't see the comments before. But it just, it's sacrifice. You know,
Yeah.
marriage is sacrifice, and you have to do things sometimes that you don't really like to do in a healthy way. No, I'm not saying that, you know, like if you're in a terrible relationship that you should just always give of yourself. You know, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, in a healthy relationship, if y'all are both working, or one staying at home and the other's working, y'all are both doing things for your family. Like, at the end of the day, sometimes you still just have to give that little bit of extra, and sometimes it's bottom of the barrel, but it's still there. It's, you know, but it's just, you know, sacrifice. I mean, that's all that I can keep saying is, love is sacrifice. And even though I don't feel like doing it, I made a commitment, and you can't lead off of your feelings, because your feelings will take you all over the place, because they're unreliable. And so the commitment is that I'm committed to be a wife, and you know, that's the duties of a wife. When you go to work, you commit to certain responsibilities, and if you don't do them, well then, you know, it is what it is. But it just, you still have to show up, whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not, and just through a lot of prayer and asking God to, you know, help you in those areas. And then it doesn't feel so much like a chore. Like, you want to be there for them. You want to, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. Anyway.
Helper or serve them in any way that you
Yes, you want to be a servant, right? You want to serve them. And if I serve my kids all day long and then I don't serve him at the end of the day, you know, then where does that leave me? So,
and like, at the end of the day, your kids are gonna grow old one day and they'll be out of the house, and then it's just you and Logan. So do you really want to look at each other as strangers, or keep that flourishing as your children grow?
Right, exactly.
I think you hit, whenever you said it's sacrifice, and sometimes it's hard to find a little bit of energy at the end of the barrel. But if you just think of that word sacrifice that you mentioned, that is the perfect example of love, because I'm pretty sure Christ did not want to die on the cross for us, but he did it out of love and sacrifice. So we as women and as wives have to dig deeper and do it, not because we want to, but like you said, we committed to that, and that's love, and it takes sacrifice.
Right. Exactly. Whether I feel like it or not, feelings or not, they're good indicators. They're not good leaders. So whether or not you feel like it, you still have to do it.
Yeah. Hard times though, because we are emotional beings. So sometimes whenever we're caught up in feelings, we think how we feel is right, and the other party should just understand. But for me, I have to like go to God and say, God, show me where I'm wrong, or sit back and reflect and say, okay, Caitlin, being a little bit too much in your feelings, like step it up.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And just, you know, comparing like, oh, he didn't do this, so I shouldn't do that. Well, then you'll never get anywhere doing
No,
that, you know? You'll
no.
just get further and further and further. Like, well, then you'll find anything. You'll find any kind of reason. Well, he didn't do this. He didn't do that. So I'm not gonna do what he wants me to do, you know? It's just that'll just lead you further and further in the opposite direction where you're not trying to go.
So like you said, sacrifice. Sometimes if you continually put your laundry in the basket and your husband doesn't, you got to sacrifice, pick the laundry up and do it for him. And there's many things like as a husband and a wife we have to do, because men, they think differently, and women, we think differently. I mean, that's how we were programmed. That's how we operate. We had a really good time with Kristen and Montel Jordan in Atlanta, and they were pouring into us because they have like a super successful marriage. They've been through the ringer and they're still strong. And that's something that they really teach us is we got to cover our men's butt sometimes because they're not always thinking the way we do.
Right. And it's that's where a lot of women can get stuck, is like, well, he's not doing what I want him to do. And you know, this may not be the case with everybody, but I have had to switch my perspective. You know, I'm home all day, so I'm complaining that he's not, you know, doing XYZ, you know, not helping with chores or helping with cleaning or whatnot. But then at the same time, like, he goes to work every single day and doesn't complain. He doesn't ask me to go to work. Like, he's, you know, he carries a load that I couldn't carry.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's not that I don't think that he should help out around the house, because I think you should do that, especially, you know, love languages. If that's a love language thing, like, you should definitely still serve your wife or your spouse in that area. But to just hold that perspective of, well, you know, he doesn't do anything at home. Well, I've had to turn it around and say, you know what? Well, he goes to work every single day. He leaves the family, and there's times where he works late, or there's times where he works weekends and doesn't complain about it ever. So like, if he sacrifices for our family to do that, then I can sacrifice, you know, I can pick up the slack here around the house. Now, whenever it gets really, really hard, if I'm having a bad day or if I'm not feeling well, you know, especially with pregnancy, like, if I need help and I ask him, without a doubt, 100%, he's gonna pick up something and help me. Like, whatever you need me to do, yeah, I'll do it. But I have to verbally say it first. And that's the part that I've really had to and still am trying to get better at, is letting him know whenever I do really need help. Because I know that he's gonna pick up whatever I need. Like, yeah, what you need, like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's just having different perspectives and thinking of it in different ways, you know, how it's not always about me. I can't always say poor pitiful me and, you know, play the victim. Well, he never helps me around the house, but he has never once asked me to go to work, you know?
Yeah.
He takes on that load every day, all day, with a smile. If y'all know Logan, he does it, you know.
Husband, and I'm sure y'all have an amazing relationship because you both work at it. You answered one of the questions I wanted to ask you, which just talks about as women, we like to assume certain things, where you hit the nail on the head. You said you vocalize it, you ask, and then he delivers.
Yeah. Yes. And I am still getting, trying to get better at that. You know, because we see things differently, they don't see things the way we do. We walk into a room and we see that laundry needs to pick up, that needs to be cleaned up, this still isn't done. Like, that's just how our brain works. That's what we see, because when we walk into a house, this is our house, this is our home, this is what we're used to doing day in and day out. Like, we know when things are out of place, we know when things need to get done. I know that I have a hamper full of laundry that still needs to be done. Like, and he just doesn't think that way. Like, he goes to that same hamper every day and puts his clothes in, but it's just not in his brain. And it's just not, it's just men, you know, I can't just get mad at him.
Can't can't fault them for it. It's who they are. I think one of your friends, Danette, was commenting that men are waffles and we are spaghetti noodles. That's how our operates. And I can totally attest to that because sometimes we're all over the place where they are very like one dimensional. And it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah. But if he would go into work, you know, like I'm sure he would see 100 things that need to be done. Whereas I would walk in and, oh, I didn't know you needed me to do that.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's he has his strengths outside of the home and being a provider, which God created him to be, and working, and you taking care of the house. So it's just a matter of you both knowing your roles and coming together as a household 100%, 100%.
Absolutely. So right now he's giving the kids a bath, but he does that every night. You know,
Yeah.
that's a routine that we have established, especially it was whenever they were home more. That was like my time to go and shower and just have time myself. After dinner, he was like, I got the kids, I'll bathe them, you go. And like, even though it was 20, 30 minutes, like it was a good reset. And then I was ready for bedtime. Because before, you know, having them all day and then bathing, and he most of the time was working or finding stuff to do with work.
Yeah.
He's like, you know, this stuff can wait. I can help you. I can bathe them. I can do this. So you can go have your 20, 30 minutes to reset, and then we can get them to bed with good moods and not have meltdowns. And then, you know, that leaves my evening free that we can do whatever, whether we want to binge Netflix or, you know, whatever. It gives us time.
That's so good.
To be together.
Valuable tips over this live interview, and it's going to be on our podcast as well. So I told our viewers that there would be a live giveaway today for all of the mamas out there. So my question is, and it's the first person who puts their answer in the comments and gets it right, will receive a free self-care kit, the Blossoming Mumsy. It's a self-care kit sent straight to your door with all of these really good mama goodies to take care of yourself. So first off, I was like, should the question be, what is Hillary's children's names? How many kids does she have? But I'm going to leave our viewers with this question. What is the biggest takeaway that you have gotten from Miss Hillary in today's interview? Go ahead and drop it in the comments. And Hillary, I want you to give us one tip that you would give a struggling mom. What would you say to her?
Find good friends.
Okay.
And this is kind of a hard one because some people, you know, may not know the difference. But going through, you know, like my journey in a deeper relationship with Christ, whenever I need advice, that like even spending time with God, you know, like I still can't get out of a funk, whatever funk I may be in. If there's women around surrounding me that I can go to that can speak life and encourage and uplift, like that makes a world of difference rather than just going to somebody. Even if I have a complaint about my husband, you know, or about my kids, there's a difference in going to someone who's going to let you sit and complain. And there's a difference in going to someone who's going to relate. Like I have a relatable experience, but here's some encouragement. Here's some light that I can speak into you. Like that makes a world of difference. And sometimes the encouragement that they speak is hard truths. Whereas there's people who won't tell you those hard truths. And so you kind of just stay in your funk. But whenever you have someone that you love that you can go to that can speak that hard truth, it can change your mood. So I think that that's really important.
Yes, that's so good. We recently had a podcast interview on like how to know if your circle is right and tight. And it's with doing that, evaluating, are those friends pouring into you and telling you the truth that helps you grow? Or is it just friends that's like, oh girl, he's wrong for that, and just boosting your ego and tearing your relationship further apart? So that's so good. That's a great moms and wives. So thank you so much for all that you shared. Danette has been super interactive this entire live. Thank you so much for all of your comments, Danette. The race was between you and Chance is not a mama. He's a great husband and a father of a puppy. So you win, Danette. I'll be sending you your self-care kit. And Hillary, thank you so much again. It was fun chatting with you. I was just sipping my tea and listening to all the so this episode will be on next week on Tuesday on the I Killed My Own Killer book series and podcast that you can find on Apple iTunes and YouTube. So stay tuned for some awesome tips on how to keep growing in your finances, your relationships, spirituality, and all things personal growth. Y'all have a good night and thank you again. Bye.
Bye.